Thank you so much. Kate.
So the new CNN polling out this week shows that President Trump has hit some historic lows, underwater on just about everything. His overall approval rating has slipped to 34%, matching his career low, which came just after January 6th, which has led to a question now being asked, which is, where exactly is the floor for the president's polling? CNN's Harry Enten running the numbers for you on this one. What do these polls say about the president?
Yeah, is there a bottom? And to me, it does not appear that there is a bottom. Trump is heading towards an electoral black hole. I feel like this is like one of those magician's tricks, right? Where the floor just falls out beneath you. And that is exactly what is happening with President Trump. Kate off on the side laughing there. Trump's approval hits record term 2 lows all out this week. You know, you mentioned the CNN poll, 34%. You think that's all? How about AP North, 33%? You think that's all? How about Quinnipiac University, 32%? So you look at it and you get 3 different pollsters all saying that Trump is hitting term 2 lows this week. In fact, Quinnipiac, I believe that is an all-time low for him. And the CNN poll, as you were mentioning, Kate, that is tied for an all-time low for him. So is there a bottom? It does not appear to be, to me, that there is a bottom for President Trump.
Compare this to history for me, please.
Yeah, okay, so we'll compare it to history. Let's compare it to the other presidents who got a term 2 in the 21st century. You could see it right here, and I'm averaging CNN, Quinnipiac, and the AP. Look at this, approval, 21st century presidents. At this point in term 2, you average them out, you average out CNN, Quinnipiac, AP, you get 33% for Trump. Obama wasn't too hot to trot, but he was at least at 41%. How about George W. Bush? The Iraq War was raging on back then during the 2006 electoral cycle. He was still at 38%. Trump is at the lowest of any president at this point in term 2 for a 21st century president. You have to go all the way back to Richard Nixon to find a lower approval rating at this point in term 2. And of course, Richard Nixon was resigning in about a few weeks at this point in 1974. Not the comparison you want to be making if you're Donald John Trump.
What is behind his historic low? What's driving it so low?
Yeah, what is driving it so low? Well, what was the reason that President Trump got a second term in the White House? It's the economy. We just keep going back to the economy. I feel, you know, like we're on antenna TV. We're playing back the oldies, playing back the repeats. Economic approval. Okay, take a look here. Where's President Trump at this point in term 2? Just 30%. Just 30% approve of the job he's doing on the economy. Obama was at 38%. George W. Bush was at 38%. These guys were doing terribly. But he's doing terrible, terrible, terrible. You know, I'm trying to do my best Charles Barkley here. I can't really do it this early in the morning, but it's just absolutely awful at this point. No wonder President Trump is at historic lows for a term 2 president at this point, and matching, if not exceeding, his term 2 low already. It's simply because people are not pleased with the economy, and when you're not pleased with the economy, you get the good old-fashioned boot as far as the American people are concerned.
And we will see. Less than 100 days away. It's good to see you think, well, I mean, not a little while for him, but
yes.
Moving on. We all know the intention.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I can deliver and, follow that, but here we go. An unusually strong heat dome is set to
Fox News polls show Democrats leading in several key Senate races heading into November. In Georgia, incumbent Senator Jon Ossoff is leading his Republican challenger, Mike Collins, by 13 points. In North Carolina, Democrat Roy Cooper leads Republican Michael Whatley in 9 points in the race to fill the state's open Senate seat. In Ohio, former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown is ahead of Republican incumbent Senator John Husted.
Was he the guy? No, he wasn't the guy that said that for it yesterday. That was the other one. Okay.
There was somebody just cursing like a sailor. Marino.
It was Marino. Okay.
Yeah. In Iowa.
Can you imagine somebody using the F word in public space?
Especially just in that setting, it just seemed very performative.
Never mind. Actually, I have done that.
You have,
before.
but
My bad.
Anywho.
Yeah.
In Iowa, Democrat Josh Turek holds a narrow 4-point lead over Republican Ashley Hinson right now. Joining the conversation, we have MS Now contributors Elise Jordan and Mike Barnicle, as well as political strategist Guy Cecil. He's the president of American Horizon, a newly launched initiative seeking to build a more durable and winning Democratic coalition while expanding the party's appeal.
Guy, it's great.
He's got a lot to do.
He's got a lot, man.
Busy guy.
Well, especially if you're doing that with the Democrats.
Jeez.
Holy cow.
You're going to be working 24/7.
We're always organized. We're always organized.
Good luck. It makes Denzel Washington's job and Return of the Titans seem easy. My God. All right, so some of these numbers are just shocking, especially from the deep South, my neck of the woods, Georgia. You've got a Democrat up 13. North Carolina got a Democrat up 9. I gotta say, both of them are just running extraordinary campaigns. Really surprised by Ohio. I think that's going to be a tight race, but I understand the Republican candidate there is just kind of weak. And people know they know Sherrod very well. He's a populist, and this does seem to be a good year for him. Iowa, a shock. And Texas, we had a poll out showing that Tallarico was up 5 points. So that's all the great news for Democrats.
Joining us, Nevada Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar. He's also the chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. Secretary Aguilar, thank you so much for joining us. So first up, on these accusations of non-citizens voting in particular, you sent a letter to DHS Secretary Mullen asking about what basis they have for any of their recent claims that nearly 16,000 non-citizens could be registered to vote in Nevada. What information are you asking for? What's your response to these claims from the administration?
First of all, we're asking for basic information. We just want to know the methodology of how they came to the conclusion of this number. We want to see the data. Again, this administration has failed on so many levels to deliver for the American people. And they're trying to distract the American people to these issues that people are tired of hearing about. These issues have been, as you mentioned, these issues have been litigated over 70 times in the courts. They've been litigated in the court of public opinion, but they continue to go back to them because they're trying to distract from their failed decisions to drive America forward.
And just to be clear, the president and his administration have lost repeatedly in court when they've been trying to get information from states, be it your voter rolls, so they can screen it through a federal database and try to figure out if any of the people registered are non-citizens. They've also lost in a number of other areas as they try to get more control over elections. But is winning even the point here? What is the effect of all of their attempts to try to gain more control over state elections?
Well, secretaries are on the front lines of these issues. We are continuing to push back. We are winning litigation. And I'll speak in terms of the president speaks. It's about winners and losers. And the secretaries are winners in this situation. We are winning the courts. I think the litigation over the disclosure of voter rolls and the private information, we're at 16-0. That's a good record to have, and I'll take that record any single day. On the other litigation over the executive orders, we continue to win. We won a recent appeal, which he is now appealing to the Supreme Court. But again, we are on the right side of the law. We will continue to be on the right side of the law. But when they start to talk about these issues, what they're doing is instilling fear. 26 is a critical election to 2028 presidential election. A reason why it's so critical is because when Secretary of States are going to be elected to their positions to administer the 28 presidential. And right now, it's hard to get America's attention to focus on the importance of Secretaries of State. We need support. We need resources to win these battles because we are not running against the MAGA focused candidates in our local states. We're running against this administration, and we need the resources to be able to push back.
I think states are actually 18-0 by our count in terms of not handing over that voter data. But Secretary, one of the fears that I keep hearing from other election officials is if the chain of custody is broken when it comes to ballots, if somehow federal agents come in, they get a judicial warrant and are able to take these ballots or tabulation machines before there's any kind of certification. How are you prepared to respond to that?
There's a multiple approach. One is making sure that the counties understand what they need to do when a federal agent shows up at a polling location or election center. That is critical, is making sure that they respond in a calm, collective way so that we can be orderly in our response. The second is immediate legal action. I call this our Mad Libs of legal filings. We have the legal pleadings ready to go. We just need the plaintiff and the defendant and the jurisdiction in which we are going to file. We have to be prepared for when this occurs. We can't take it for granted that things are going to go well. As secretaries of state and local elections officials, we are crisis managers. We have to be prepared every single moment of the day to deal with the unknown. This administration has no guardrails. They are off the rails, and they continue to push down their threats and intimidation. But again, secretaries are some of the strongest people in this country. We are on the front lines of this. I talk about Adrian Fontes in Arizona. He served 20 years, or he served in the Marines. My elections deputy here in Nevada served 20 years.
Non-college educated white voters have always been a key part of Trump's voting constituency. That's probably why everybody's so obsessed about talking about this voting bloc all the time. Which is why the latest polling on Trump's approval rating should be freaking people out over at the White House. Because according to a new CNN poll just released today, Trump is underwater with white voters without a college degree. And for the first time ever, that deficit is outside the margin of error. That is a huge freaking deal. Democrats haven't won a majority of white voters without a college degree since Jimmy Carter in 1976. And now Trump is losing that key demographic by 8 points. It is part of the reason Trump's overall disapproval rating in that poll is at 66%, the worst disapproval rating he's ever received in that poll across both of his terms. And there's one particular question in this poll that I think goes a very long way toward explaining why Trump is so unpopular right now. Does Donald Trump have the right priorities for this country? And as you can see on your screen there, only 27% of Americans think Trump's priorities are right. Well, a full 73% of Americans think Trump does not have the.
Donald Trump is directly dragging Republican candidates down in these close elections, and at this point, the party cannot pretend otherwise. In the tightest states, the blame belongs squarely on him. Now, obviously, there are some districts Republicans will win regardless of how toxic Trump becomes, just as there are deep blue seats Democrats would probably hold under almost any political environment. A heavily Democratic district in California is not suddenly flipping because of Trump alone. But that is not where this story matters. Look at Texas. Look at Georgia. Jon Ossoff is already in a strong position, and Republicans have struggled to recruit a truly top-tier challenger against him. Look at North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, and other places that should not be causing this much anxiety for the GOP. Red states are suddenly competitive, while Democratic-leaning races are becoming increasingly difficult for Republicans to contest. And the common factor running through all of them is Donald J. Trump. It is his policies, his conduct, his character, and his chaotic approach to governing. It is also his complete inability to admit that he is losing. All of that is shaping these races. His economic agenda is weakening public confidence, increasing frustration, and making voters much more willing to choose anyone who represents a break from the current direction. That is how American politics usually works, for better or, very often, for worse. When voters become unhappy with the people in power, they throw them out and give somebody else a chance, whether the replacement is actually better or not. We saw that in 2024. Americans were frustrated and demanded something different. They returned Trump to the presidency and handed Republicans control of both chambers of Congress. And what did Trump do with that power? He accomplished plenty if the goal was creating new crises, inflaming old divisions, and making existing problems worse. But when it came to actually solving the issues that drove voters to reject the previous government, he delivered almost nothing meaningful. Now those voters are preparing to punish him. Trump himself is not directly on the midterm ballot, so the public cannot vote him out in this election. But they can punish every Republican who enabled him, defended him, and voted with him nearly every time. The message to those candidates is simple. You chose to tie your political future to Donald Trump. You backed him through the chaos and ignored the damage. voters are finished playing along. And just because Republicans willingly chain themselves to a sinking political anchor does not mean the public has to feel guilty when it throws them overboard.